Hi, I'm Ian and welcome back to Astro Time Traveller. In this episode I'm going to try to image M51 the Whirlpool Galaxy with my Evostar 72 ED. So the focal length is 375, so it'll be a very small object in the field of view, but hopefully I'll get enough data that I can actually process it and get a good image out at the end. Here we are in May, which has been pretty bad in the UK. We've had 2 nights of potential imaging throughout the month really. Whilst April was very cold, it was very dry, but May has just been wet throughout the month. We've had hailstorms, we've had everything. So stay tuned and I'll show you a little bit of what's been going on in the UK, but we'll see my setup for imaging M51, and then I'll show you how I process the image a little bit and give you a glimpse of the final image. Okay, so stay tuned for the Whirlpool Galaxy. So here is the setup for tonight, and you can see the telescope, guide camera and main camera on top of the mount, which is the Skywatcher EQ6R Pro, which is my normal mount that I use. And on top of that you can see the telescope is the Skywatcher Evostar 72 ED, which has a 420mm focal length with a 72mm diameter. But I've actually got on this the focal reducer and flattener at the back here, you can see, which brings the focal length down to about 375. And then behind that you can also see I've got a filter drawer. I've got the ZWO 2-inch filter drawer, which is got the L-Enhance, Optolong L-Enhance filter in it. And then behind that I've got enough back focus for about 55mm in total, and that all goes onto my main camera, which is the ZWO 294 MC Pro. And on top of the telescope you can see I've got my guide scope, which is the ZWO 60mm 280mm focal length guide scope, and at the bottom of that I've got my guide camera, which is the ZWO 120mm. So all of that's connected up to the ASI Air Pro, which you can see there, which I attached to one of the shoes on the telescope. So all of that works pretty well. I've got all the cables connected So I've got the guide camera connected to the ASI Pro, I've got the main camera connected to the ASI Pro, and I've got a USB stick in there to capture the images, and then obviously later on I'll connect the mount to the ASI Air Pro as well. I tend to power the mount separately straight off a direct electrical cable rather than power it through the ASI Pro. So that's pretty much everything set up. So we're ready to go to do the Whirlpool Galaxy tonight, and we'll see how we get on. So here is the stacked image in Deep Sky Stacker. Now I just stretch it in Pixinsight, and you can see there looks like some good data in there, even though the galaxy is very small in the image. Because I took a lot of images, hopefully I've got some really good data. So here are my processes. On the left hand side are my linear, and here's my non-linear processes on the right hand side. I like to list them all out like that. So the first one I'm going to use is dynamic crop. So let's just go into dynamic crop, bring that across, and I'm just going to bring in the edges slightly just in case there are any artifacts around the edges from the stacking in Deep Sky Stacker, but they tend not to be. I think I had 2 nights images here, but it's a pretty good set of images. So we've just done that. So we've cropped the image a little bit. The next thing I'm going to do is automatic background extractor. So what I want to do here is just use the box separation up to about 11, and then I'm going to do both division and subtraction, but let's do division first. So I'll run these quickly, but I'll jump ahead as they process. It take a little time. There we go, we've jumped ahead. So we've done that. Let's just stretch it again and see what that looks like. So yeah, that's brought it out good. And if we had a look at the galaxy, yep, that looks good in there. There's a good deal of data. So now we'll just do subtraction. So again, just process that, run it through. It will do quite quickly. And now I want to use a preview because I'm going to use background neutralization to try and balance across the picture. And that's the first thing I'll do that fairly quickly. And then I'll use color calibration. Now when I do color calibration, I tend to only use the background reference. I don't use the white reference. On some images I do, but most times I don't, and it seems to work quite well. So here we go with that. That's done. Let's just stretch it again to get it back to what I want to see. Okay, that looks fine. So pretty much done everything now, then major noise reduction. So I can get rid of the old preview. I need to create a mask, so let's build up a luminous, and then using the screen transfer and the histogram, I can then stretch that. So I've just done that by using the nuclear button, pull the triangle across to the histogram, and then put that back across onto the image, so that it's now stretched. So we can use that as a mask, so we can put that onto our image, and then we just put that down to save that for later perhaps. Check the image, put the mask into inversion. So I'm going to protect the galaxy and the stars, but I can work on the background. So here's my presets for the multi-scale linear transform. First one is luminance, so I'm just going to run that. It runs through fairly quickly. I'm just jumping ahead because I made these processes look quicker than they take, a little bit longer than here. And then the second one, which is chrominance with my presets. And then I've got a third one, which is here, which is the RGB K components. And again, I run that fairly quickly. You can stop the video to see what my settings are at any stage if you want to. But that just runs through fairly quickly. And now I've done all of my noise reduction in the linear stage. And now unstretch it. So I'm now ready to do the full stretch. So bring up my histogram, bring up a preview, start to play with the curves. Yeah, that's good. Let's just stretch it across a bit, play with the darker elements. I don't want to clip it, so the shadow I keep at 0. Bring back, so my top graph is on the left hand line set. So that's pretty much done. So now stretch the image, so I'm happy with that. You can see the data's pretty good coming out there now. So the next stage I can do is do a little bit more noise reduction. Now it is non-linear, so I want to do a preview on ACDNR. So just make it a little bit stronger over there. Yep, that's good. So the white will protect and the dark will, the white will not protect and the dark will. I'm just going to change, having clicked the lightness, I'm going to change chrominance to 2.2 at 90% and the threshold of 0.015. And on the lightness, I'm just going to create the standard dev up to about 1.8. So ready to go. So just click on that and that will run through fairly quickly, and that will be my last noise reduction. So going to be happy with that. I think that looks pretty good from what I can see. Zoom in. Yep, that looks pretty clean. So happy with that. So now I can start working on the galaxy, etc. But to do that, I'll need some masks. So the first thing I'm going to do is create a luminance from the image, and then I'm going to use StarNet on that to create a mask for stars and a mask for the galaxy. So if we pull up StarNet over here, so it's in our list of potential mask things that I'm going to do. So use StarNet, click on that, and it will create two new images, one of stars and one of just the galaxy. It takes quite a while to do that, so we'll jump ahead to when it's completed, and there we go. So there's the star element, so we'll save that to use on stars in a little while. On the galaxy, it has got the galaxy, but it's all pulled in, so also pulled in some of the stars. So first off, I'll use the histogram transformation just to darken it down a bit and get rid of some of that background lightness. Then once I've done that, I'll use clone stamp to get rid of some of those stars that came across that shouldn't have. So we'll only do it once, not twice. There we go. So that looks good. Now we're just going to clone stamp, probably use a radius of 50. So set that up, and then I'll show you, I'll just get rid of one or two of the stars here and then I'll jump ahead, but really it's just deleting those. I normally spend a lot more time on this to be very precise, but I'm just doing this quickly to show you the key elements of how I process this image. Clearly you can take a lot longer to do that to get the image more refined, but this is helpful just to show you. So now we can put that onto the image. So I'm now going to protect all of the background but just work on the galaxy. So let's just check the mask, and there we are. Yep, you can see red at the background is protected. So now I can work on the galaxy. So I'll create a preview so I can look at the galaxy as I do some different processes. So there's the preview. So the first thing I'm going to do is try and see if some HDR multiscale will work. So we'll just put that on. No, I don't like that. I think I like to see the galaxy with a lot of the stars still there, and that's probably just destroying them a little bit too much. So I'm not going to use that this time, but I'll try the local histogram equalization. So again, first thing is set a preview and then play around with some of the settings. The kernel radius, I like it about 124 for this. I'm going to probably put the contrast limit up to 2.5. and then I'll play around with the amount until I get it to my liking. That's probably a bit too bright and is bringing out too much of the definitions between the spirals. I want to have a little bit less. So I'll bring it down a bit. Let's try 500, see what that looks like. No, a little bit too much still, so I'll bring it down maybe a little bit more, something like 380. There we go. Yeah, that looks better. I think that works. So go back to the main image, and then we can click on that to process that. And then the next thing I might do is probably a little bit of sharpening. So on the sharpening, I have a preset here which I can use. So I'll just put up a real-time preview of that and see what that looks like. It takes a little while to do that, so I'll jump ahead. And there it is. And if I do before and after, yeah, you can see there's a little bit of sharpening coming in there. So I'm happy with that. So I think I'm going to use that. So again, get rid of the real-time preview, go back to the main image and click on that to process it. So that takes a few seconds to do, and we'll jump ahead on that. So I'm pretty much happy with what I've done on the galaxy, so I can probably remove that mask. And what I might want to do now is probably some work on the stars. So I'll bring up the star mask and put that on. And then what I can do is just put a bit of color into the stars using curves transformation. So again, pull up a real-time preview for that, and then use the saturation element, and then bring up some tones there to get some color in the stars. Probably not that much, probably about there will do. I'm only going to do this once probably, not multi it. So I think that looks pretty good. There's some colors come out there in some of the stars, so happy with that. So yep, there we go. So I can remove that mask now. I don't think I'll need that again. So yeah, all the stars got some color in them. So let's just close that down. Let's just remove the mask. And then probably I just want to do something with the background. So I need another luminance. I probably should have created a clone earlier, but I'll create a new luminance mask now, and then we'll put that on so I can make the background a bit darker. Whoops, I've duplicated it. So there we go. Let's put it onto the image. Let's put that to one side. So let's just have a look at the image. Yep, so now we're going to invert it so I can protect the galaxy and the stars, but do something with the background. So again, back into curves, bring up my real-time preview, and then using the RGBK, just darken the background. Probably a gentle S-curve. We might do this 2 or 3 times to get the right level of darkness coming in the background. You don't want it too dark to make it look too artificial, but you want something that brings out a bit of the stars and the galaxy in particular. So that's a couple of times, maybe 3 times. Yeah, 4 times. No, I think I'll leave it there. So I've done it 3 times. So I won't do that last one. But if I close that down, the actual image, yeah, that looks pretty good. And there's the galaxy still looking good in the center. Yep. So the final thing I probably want to do now is just do a bit more curves work on bringing out some color in the galaxy. So put the galaxy mask back on, and then we can go to curves transformation, bring up a real-time preview again, and then just use a bit of saturation to bring out some of that nebulosity. You can see there's some nebulas within the galaxy, and that's just coming out a bit. And just use a bit of the sea. You can be aggressive as you want, depends on your taste as to how you want the galaxy to look, really. This is where there's a bit of an art coming into it, to a personal taste. I don't want it too much, so I'm not going to put too much of that curve on. I'm going to do a fairly gentle sea curve here, so just get it to about there probably. That looks good. So happy with that. So close the real-time preview, go to the main image, and let's process that. And that's pretty much where I want to be. I think that's going to be all I really need to do in Pixinsight. I think the rest I can do in Photoshop. So get rid of the preview, get rid of the mask, and then I'll just save this. I'll save this as a TIFF file so I can use it in Pixinsight. So let's just call it, say, Final V1. So Final V1, and we'll save that, and we'll save it as 16-bit. Yep. I moved across into Photoshop. So here's the image come across. I've opened it up. So I've now gone into the camera raw file, and now I can play around with elements. I'll zoom into the actual galaxy a bit, and the first thing I'll do is probably work on some of the detail, a little bit of sharpening and a tiny little bit of noise reduction, nothing too much. And then I'll go back to basics, play around with the clarity, on texture, just down a bit. And this is all about personal taste and what you like and how it looks to you. On contrast, I want to bring the contrast down a little bit, make the background a bit darker, play around with the highlights and the shadows and the whites, see what that looks like. Yeah, there's not much to do here really. Maybe bring the blacks down a little bit. So happy with that. Press OK, and then what I can do is then put that to save it. So I'll save it as both a TIFF file and I'll save it as a JPEG. So save it as a TIFF to start with, and let's just call it final_PS for Photoshop. So -PS, there we go. So save that. Tells me it loses lots of space, and then I'll do it again and save a copy as a JPEG. So that's it. I hope you've enjoyed it, and here are the images of M51.